Hey guys, James from Kartz-N-Fartz. Want to show you a Club Car Precedent we're getting ready to do a eco battery lithium conversion on. This is a 2004 model. This one I haven't done a video on yet, so we're going to do one now. This one has the 4 12-volt battery setup. So it's a 48-volt cart. We're going to convert it over to the eco battery 51-volt. Again, this customer here, hey, he uses on his farm around his land, which is great. That's what you buy it for. So we'll go through the step-by-step process on how this eco battery is going to fit under the seat of that. Kind of like an unboxing video, but I've got all my parts set aside. But once we get that deal done, similar to my wife's cart, it's going to have that Q battery, but there's also going to be a console in the middle. So we're going to figure it out. So stay tuned. Maybe you're getting ready to accomplish this yourself, and hopefully I'll have some good pointers for you. All right, guys. So once I removed all the batteries, I'm gonna give this a quick little hose out and try to get a little bit of that debris down out the way. What we are going to have to do on this system is we're going to have to notch these out of the way, and that's so the 105 battery will fit in there. So, but I'm gonna rinse some of this out of the way. The passenger side is going to be basically for storage, so that you don't have to mess with. And let's get that step done. All right, got it rinsed out. Battery tray looks a lot better. We're going to remove the battery charger jack, and we're going to replace it with the one Eco provides, where all you have to do is use an extension cord. Probably going to replace a couple cables. He has a 4-gauge cable, but we're going to update it to 2-gauge cables. It does have a high output controller, but anyway, and that came off with just one little old nut. So it was I believe it was a 3/8. So one nut, and it just slides straight up. I know the cables come in right here where this groove is, so we'll see whether we need to modify that as we jump into this. And another thing, guys, we're going to end up bypassing this OBC. We will not need that anymore, so stay tuned. Okay, guys, this is our bundle kit with everything that's in it. Eco does an extremely good job packing this with foam, a good snug fit. They put a plastic bag in there. So here's the main deal, what you're buying this kit for, and that is the battery itself. So that is a 51-volt, 105 amp hour. It also will come in this in a little separate plastic bag. I just put a lot of that stuff over to the side. But you'll use your J-hook. This is what they call a through-hole battery, and it actually comes with a supplied nut. So you get a brand new nut to put on top of there. That will keep it tight. Also, when you open up this box, on the side, you're going to find the terminals, or the bolts for the cables. Don't lose those. I've read online where people, did not get them. I can tell you right now, I bet you they were just stuffed over here on the side, and it's real easy to let those things get thrown away. So be careful. Remember to get that. You're also going to have a negative and positive cover once you get our cables on there, and I'll show you that. And you can probably see that it's got a little groove, and you just find the groove, and it snaps on there to keep everything covered. So that's going to be really nice. This is your 51-volt down to 13.5 volt reducer. It does come with its own harness, and we're going to talk about that during the install, but it is fused coming in and going out. So you've got good protection there. You're going to also get another box with your gauge and also your wiring harness that's going to go right here in the side of the battery, right here. And again, we'll see all this stuff will come to life. You've got the bracket and the nuts to screw that into the dash. Also comes with a charging receptacle. And all this, so all you use is a extension cord, but all this stuff comes quick connect. So it's going to quickly connect here to your lithium battery charger. So real simple install. It comes with a little bit of hardware to screw it into the side of the panel. And I think that's pretty much it about the unboxing. So let's get started on the cart. All right, guys, the next step I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and prepare my battery tray for that battery to sit flush. And as you can tell, you got a little bit of a rise there. And what these little blocks do is space those 12-volt batteries apart. So I'm going to cut 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna start with cutting those 4 flush with this panel right here. how much is that? Maybe an inch, something like that. So I'm gonna cut those flush. That way the battery will sit down flat, and the tool of my choice is this oscillating saw that I picked up from Lowe's. So it works good for me. And like I said, that's about the only thing I use it for is golf cart repairs. So if you've got something else, maybe a little heavier duty, that'd be great. But just cut that all smooth and move on to the next step. Okay guys, I've got my little notches cut. So these are just gonna come right out. The middle one I ran into a little bit of an issue, and I'll tell you what the issue was. Didn't think about it, but I had to change my blade, that's all. Not a whole lot of room to reach over in the corners of this, not with that center console. So when I changed my blade sideways, guess what? It worked out perfect. So I still got plenty of material down there for the J-hook to bolt to. So now let me get this cleaned out. All right, the next step we're gonna do, we're gonna install our charging port and get rid of all these old wires for the factory one. So I've already got a little bit of a head. I've taken out the 4 screws on each of the side seals. I like to use this tool right here. It's like a door panel removal tool. There on these side skirts of these Precedents, there is a little push-in tab here, and there's another one about right there. And if you try to pull them, especially on a cart that's got some age on it, it may break those tabs, and then it may flop around. So what I do is I take this tool, it's kind of like a little 2-part deal in there. Try and do this with one hand here, and I just kind of wiggle it, see if I can get it to break loose. Let's try it again. There we go. There you go. So that one popped loose, and there's another one right down here. And again, you can probably reach it from underneath. If you're careful not to scratch the paint, you can get it from the top. There we go. And see how we broke that loose without breaking that tab off of the side seal? So that's the goal. That's what you want to do. And once I pull this loose, I just need to pull it loose enough to get the floor mat out of the way. Once we get the floor mat out of the way, there's going to be 3 T30s, I believe it is, underneath this little kick or charging panel port. So let me get the other side with this, and we'll jump on to the next step. Once you get this far and you get the floor mat out of the way, if these T30s have a lot of sand in them, they're not going to grab. So just take a straight edge, wiggle it around, and you'll knock enough dust out of it, or sand, so you can actually get the bit on there. So you got 3 of those, and then this charging port here, when you stick a straight edge and just pull it towards the middle, and it will pop right open. So pretty cool little way that comes out right there. All right, guys, once you get your 3 bolts right for your charging port kick plate, the next step is to lift the body up slightly so we can get it out. There's going to be 4 bolts, 2 right up front here, and then 2 in the corner. So take those bolts out, slightly lift up the body. It's going to allow us room to push some wiring harnesses through here. This is going to be for our voltage meter, and also the wire for our voltage relay, which we're going to wire to the ignition switch. And I'm going to run those on some of these channels right over there. So anyway, let's go and do that. All right, guys, so we've got the charging port kick plate removed. Now what we're going to do is we're going to remove 3 Phillips head screws around this charging port, get it out of the way, and remove all the wires that go with it. So we're going to replace that with the one Eco provides. So the back side of it, and this is the wiring harness to your OBC. I'm going to unplug it. I gently unplugged it before I started the video. There's also a black wire that's in this white connector. We can unplug it. We're going to follow these wires. There's a main red wire. We're going to unplug it. There's a gray wire right here that comes off the charging port, wraps around, plugs into your OBC. It just unplugs. Very simple for that. And I think that's all the wires that we need to remove. So let's go ahead and get that out of the way. All right, guys, I was wrong on this one. The majority of these are Phillips heads, but as you can see, that is a Torx. And this one has a size Torx 10. So let me go ahead and remove it. All right, so I've got those T10s out the way, and this port will just pull out. So we're done with that. Won't be using that at all. So now I'm going to mount our Eco battery port. And you see it just plugs in with a extension cord, but it's going to have a quick connect to the, there it is right there, to the charger. So let's go ahead and get that step done. All right, guys, so I got the charging port installed, and for right now, I'm just going to leave that little pigtail there. But as you can see, it's going to look real nice. It's going to fit right around there, and I've got my T10s holding it in place. So now I'm moving on to bypassing the OBC while I'm at it. So I've already taken the bolts out, and we're going to slide this off. So the only wires that's remaining is this black wire from the back. It comes over the top, and it bolts into the controller. So for now, I'm just going to snip it. All right, so now let's walk around to this side. Once I get that light out of the way, there we go. Once we get this out, there we go. Now, we're going to do something that's plug in just a second. But that black wire that came across there is this wire. So instead of just cutting it there and leaving that on there, I'm gonna go ahead and loosen this bolt and get this connector completely out of there. Okay guys, off camera, I did a test fit, and the best orientation I'm gonna have for this battery is gonna be for the positive and the negative, and also the hookup for our battery meter is gonna be facing the passenger side. And the reason for that is I want room for my J-hook to fit in my through bolt. So when I test fit it a second ago, the cover will slide on there properly with these notches that I showed you at the earlier of the video. Now, this blue wire that's on this cart, this is going to your headlight 12 volt accessories. So for now, I'm just going to tuck it through this hole. We're going to do something with it, and underneath here it's got a fuse. And by the way, this cart does have an upgraded controller and solenoid, so yours may not look exactly like this, but it's going to be the same install. So let me move that wire over there. I am going to have to lengthen my positive and my negative cable, because before the negative was about here and the positive was about here. So I'm going to measure all that, build some new cables, and I will let you know what the measurements are. All right, guys, we're moving on to the OBC bypass. So here's the OBC that controls the old charger. So what I'm gonna do, I know I'm not gonna reuse this, so I'm gonna give myself plenty of room. I'm gonna cut it down here. I'm gonna insulate the wires. I am gonna connect the blue and the white together. I'm gonna use heat shrinking tubing, make it weatherproof, and then I'll plug this back into the harness of the cart. So let me go ahead and get that done. All right, guys, so I got my OBC plug you just saw me cut off. Did connect my blue and my white wire together. Got a real good connection on it. Put some heat shrink on there to weatherproof it. So what I'll do is I'll plug it right back into here. And while we were off camera, I also made myself 2 new wires. So this is going to be my negative wire, and that's going to be my positive wire. And let me get those measurements for you. All right, guys, so I did get my measurements, and one was 41, one was 42. I'm not even gonna tell you which one was which. Just cut them both 42 inches. There's enough room to tuck them behind the cover, but there's also not so much where it's gonna look like you've got too much wire sticking out. So when we get finished with it, you'll see how nice it is. So remember, 42 is your magic number. Now let me plug in my OBC bypass and move on to the next. All right, the next step is going to be to remove this panel here, and he does have a voltage meter, which we're not going to use. A regular voltage meter will not register lithium power properly. So the center hole is right there. It's going to interfere with this switch. I've already talked with the customer. We're going to move this switch over here somewhere. Keep his headlight switch there. So let's go ahead and remove that. You're going to remove it with 2 T30 sockets right there, or a Torx bit, and then there's a real small one. I think it's a T15. We're going to remove it, and this panel should drop out. Okay, guys, we are going to install the voltage meter. Now there's a small indention right here from Club Car, and there's another one over here on this side for your headlight switch. That is the ideal place. When I flip it over on the back, you can see it's going to center it inside of this rectangle perfectly. However, the previous customer or previous installer installed a light bar switch over here. So what I'm gonna try to do is to take my hole saw and I'm gonna scoot it just a little bit to the right, and I'm gonna try to just barely cover that because I don't want this circle leaving a half a hole right there. So for your install, if all this is blank, which it should be, I want you to use that nipple right there. I'm also getting over far enough to where I'm not going to interfere with this old battery meter. And I'm gonna leave it in there. I unplugged everything because I just don't like holes in the dash. And so this is gonna kind of, my customer said he really didn't care, but it kind of reflects on me. So I'm gonna scoot over a little bit and let's see how that goes. All right, guys, that did work. So it's gonna be a little bit to the right than most of them I put on there, but I think it's gonna look awesome. And in case I did not mention it, this is the size hole saw you need to buy. That's a 2 3/64, which is a 52 millimeter. Kind of an odd size. If you're gonna cut a hole, I'd rather you cut one a little smaller and work it with a file, but that makes it very easy. And I grabbed it off Amazon. It's not a whole lot of money. So let's start running some wires. So now the goal is to mount the gauge, and then I'm gonna run all through behind there and through that floor panel, my cable. Just for giggles, that's where my hole ended up at. So I got pretty lucky on that. All right, guys. So I've got my cable run and plugged in for my meter. I did reposition that switch that you saw earlier over here. I've got it snugged in. It's gonna work out fine. And now I need to run my orange wire from my voltage reducer harness. Now, let me tell you something that I've learned. These channels are small. They're designed for the factory harness. I'm gonna end up sticking in this meter harness, and then I need to stick this one in. Well, it comes with some black sheathing on there. This is going to be underneath the floor mat. I'm not going to worry about it getting pinched or anything, and I just don't have enough room. So I peel that orange wire out of it up to about right here, and then I'm going to take my scissors and be sure that I cut the sheathing and not the wire. And I'm just going to be dealing with these two, trying to tuck them in this channel. So once I get all that tucked in, this orange wire also, I am going to hook to my ignition switch, which is right over here, to the blue wire. Now the previous, owner or the previous worker has already hooked some other accessories to there, but you can see that is the blue wire that came off the main harness and went into this terminal right here. So this orange wire is going to hook in with this terminal. I've showed in the previous or other videos, I'm going to use some of these connectors. I get them off Amazon. If you want to zoom into the part number, that's what the part number that I ordered. And this makes a clean install for me. And let's see, get the phone down here. And so, whoops. So that's what that connector is going to look like. So I'm going to put this on the orange connector. I'm going to put it on that terminal, which is the blue wire that goes to it. And then I'm just going to pigtail off of that male end. So it's going to make a nice clean install for me. If I ever have to unplug it, it'll be easy for me to unplug. All right, guys, so we got the dash back together. I did run the cable to the meter and also to my trigger wire to my voltage reducer behind here. I ended up zip tying it to the main harness, and then I came down here and just put a little bit of tape to keep it in place. And then it goes all the way through here, and right above the charging receptacle, that's where it's actually coming into the battery compartment. So now I just need to set the battery. Actually, you can see right there, this is going to hook into the side of your battery on the DIN connector right here. So I made sure I had just enough room to keep it along the side and do the job that it needs to, is to plug in. Same thing with my battery cable, so it's not going to be a whole lot of loose wire hanging around. So let's set the battery in there, get that lined up. Then we're going to put the cover on. Then we're going to start working on the battery charger and the voltage reducer. All right, guys, before we set the battery down in there, I'm going to take my voltage reducer. I've already test fit it, and I'm gonna mount it flat right there. I've got plenty of room. I can still grab my hole for my through hole, and then that harness down there will quick connect to this harness, which has got, remember, our orange wire for our trigger wire, and also our yellow and black lead that has the ring terminals. That's gonna go on the battery. All right, guys, one thing about this voltage reducer, you see your two holes there? Well, guess what? You've got two, but one's underneath this connector. So you're only gonna be able to use 3 screws. It's gonna be secure, it's gonna be fine. And we're gonna mount it right there against that plastic. There's nothing behind that on a Club Car Precedent. All right, guys, so I've got my voltage reducer mounted. I went ahead and clipped in my harness. What I did do was separate the yellow and black wires, and these are the ones with the ring terminals. So I can actually feed this harness underneath this cover. And then out the other end, the red and black wire, that's going to be going to anything that cuts on with the voltage reducer. So your lights, stereos, whatever else you may have, it's going to go underneath here and out the other side of the cover. But I did want these wires to be able to reach and bolt up to the battery. Okay, guys, we've got the battery set down in here. I've got my cable stretched tight. And also, I've got my charger just laying there for now. We're going to mount that in a second, but it's kind of a good thing we moved that OBC, because I am feeding the wires, which is right here, to the charger through that hole of the OBC. You can kind of see that. Also, the harness from the voltage reducer, down there, there's 2 fuses, an in and an out fuse. Those wires are going behind there. Once I put the cover on top of here, they're going to be tucked under the bottom. They come across, and then they come back out. And you can see this is where I might have to hook all my 12-volt accessories to. So for now, I'm going to hook these cables back up. Be sure to pay attention to your negative and your positive. And you want to put the thickest cable against the battery and work your way out. So in our case, it's going to be, and it should be your case too, it's going to be the battery or controller battery cables that go straight to the battery. The second one is going to be my charger, which is going to look like that, your lithium charger. And then last is going to be your voltage reducer. So 3 cables on each one, unless you've got some other kind of accessories. So let's get that bolted up and go from there. And I did check my hole. I can definitely see the hole on the bottom of the tray. So we'll bolt that up once I snug up my battery cables. Okay, guys, so I realized that I could not get the J-hook in there after I laid the battery in there. So we pulled the battery out, got our J-hook in there. It helps if you can get somebody to help you hold the J-hook in place while you slide the battery straight down. Okay, guys, we got the battery set down inside of there. We did this battery tray, the floor of it, I don't know if you can see it on this side. It's going to be very difficult in the video lens, but it actually slopes down. And probably for those drain holes for, I guess, water or battery acid or whatever else. So I did have to put some little plastic spacers underneath a couple corners of the battery just to keep it from wobbling. But as solid as it can be right now. Now, you can see I've got my negative cable and my positive cable, along with the battery charger cables and the voltage reducer cables. I've got them running right alongside. It's going to come in right here at the bottom to where this cover is going to go in. And on the other side, same deal. My cables are running right along the side there. See if I can focus in on there. It's going to be different. There it goes. So what I am going to do, or I have already done, this is my cover. So that's run toe switch is going to stick out through here. That's going to be facing the front of the cart. So I took this one side and I notched it out a little bit. So that little piece was right there. I just notched it out. And on the back side where the cables are going to be coming through, it was like this, where there's no way all that cable is going to fit through that small little hole. So I notched it out. So actually, it was like that. So I notched it out. So just 2 little notches. Again, I use my oscillating tool. So let's get it fit in there. All right, guys, as we get ready to slide this cover on there, I want to point something out to you. You can see the access hole right here, but see those ribs right there, those grooves? They hit the grooves on this run toe switch. So be sure you hit that right. All right, guys, it's a wrap. So I've got the cover back in place. I went ahead and mounted my charger, did a little bit of wire management, tucked a lot of wires underneath that cover. There's a lot more room underneath there than you think it is. So she's ready to go. So I'm gonna let her charge overnight. She's at 30% right now. All my accessories are working with my key switch. So everything turned out absolutely awesome. Guys, thank you for tuning into my video. I enjoy doing these videos. I really enjoy the Eco Battery product. This is the first one I've done with the 12-volt setup. The only thing that got a little tricky was balancing the battery. I think the bottom of that battery tray actually is tilted backwards, so took a little bit of work to balance it out, but it's not a big deal. So, but as you can see, the cart's charging. You know, this customer here, she's not a trailer queen, she's a workhorse, and they did a lot of research on lithium batteries, and they did choose to go with Eco. So I'm thankful that they chose to go with me. Enjoyed making this video. Like I said, a reminder, I am the Eco Battery authorized dealer here in Columbia, South Carolina. I do ship out, you know, nationwide. So if there's anything that I can do to help you, got a question, yeah, shoot me an email, a text, or even just call me. My cell phone number's 803-530-5813. Be happy to help any way I can. It always comes back to me, but you know, more so, I want to sell you a battery. So any questions, any suggestions, maybe I can do something different on the next 12-volt setup. If you've done one before, let me know. Check out my other videos. I've got some golf cart tricks and some, you know, little issues that I've run across and found easy fixes for them. And again, hopefully this will just help out the golf cart community. So thanks again. And also pay attention to my upcoming website, Kartz-N-Fartz.com. So that should be running up here the summertime of 2023. So can't wait to give this back to the customer and see his smile. You guys have a great night.